My doorbell camera caught my friendly neighbors stealing my packages. When they took a gift for my cancer-stricken father, I finally confronted them. The truth was heartbreaking. I first noticed packages going missing about 3 years ago. It started with small things: a book I'd ordered, a pair of headphones. Nothing too expensive, but annoying nonetheless. At first, I thought it was just delivery errors or maybe even a random porch pirate passing through our quiet suburban neighborhood. But after the 6th or 7th package disappeared, I started to get suspicious. Our neighborhood is one of those places where everyone knows each other, or at least pretends to. We have the annual block party, wave when we pass each other getting the mail, and occasionally borrow cups of sugar. The whole cliché suburban experience. That's why it felt so bizarre that someone was consistently stealing my deliveries. I installed a doorbell camera last year, thinking that would solve the problem. The first few weeks, nothing happened. Then one afternoon while I was at work, I got a notification on my phone. When I checked the footage, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was my next-door neighbor, the one who always smiled and asked about my day, casually walking up to my porch, picking up my package, and walking back to their house like it was the most normal thing in the world. I watched the footage 3 times, thinking maybe I was misinterpreting what I was seeing. But no, it was clear as day. The neighbor I'd lived beside for 5 years, whose kid I'd helped when they fell off their bike, whose driveway I'd shoveled during heavy snowfalls, was stealing from me. I was furious. I wanted to storm over there immediately, but I was stuck at work for another 4 hours. By the time I got home, I'd calmed down enough to think more rationally. I decided to gather more evidence before confronting them. Over the next 2 months, I documented 4 more thefts. Each time, the same neighbor would wait until about an hour after delivery, casually walk over like they were just checking if I was home, then take whatever package was sitting there. Sometimes they'd even bring their dog along, making it look like they were just out for a walk. I considered going to the police, but what would that accomplish in our tight-knit community? Everyone would find out, sides would be taken, and the neighborhood dynamic would be ruined. Plus, none of the stolen items had been particularly valuable. Annoying, yes, but not worth creating a permanent rift over. Then last month, I ordered something special. My father had been diagnosed with cancer earlier this year, and while going through old family photos, I found a picture of him as a young man standing next to his first car, a vintage model that he'd always talked about with such fondness. I managed to find a detailed die-cast model of that exact car online. It wasn't expensive, but it had immense sentimental value. I wanted to give it to him before he started his 2nd round of chemo. The day it was delivered, I watched through the app as the courier left it on my doorstep. I couldn't leave work early that day, and I had this sinking feeling that my neighbor would take this package too. Sure enough, about 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the app just in time to see my neighbor pick up the package and walk away with it. Something in me snapped. This wasn't just some random Amazon purchase. This was for my sick father. I left work early, telling my boss it was a family emergency. In a way, it was. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to calm down. I had the evidence. I had the footage. I just needed to handle this like an adult. I walked next door and rang the doorbell. When my neighbor answered, their face immediately changed. They knew they'd been caught. "I think you have something that belongs to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They stammered something about checking if I was home, but I cut them off and showed them the footage on my phone. Their face went pale. "Look, I don't care about the other packages," I said, which wasn't entirely true, but I was focused on what mattered most at that moment. "But the one you took today is a gift for my father. He has cancer, and it's important to me." What happened next completely changed everything I thought I knew about my neighbor and our community. They invited me inside, and I reluctantly followed. Their house, which I'd only glimpsed through windows and during the occasional neighborhood gathering, was sparse. Not just minimalist, genuinely sparse, with mismatched furniture that had seen better days and walls that needed paint. In the kitchen, their teenager was making dinner, just pasta with what looked like the most basic sauce. My neighbor disappeared for a moment and returned with a box. My box. Unopened. "I'm sorry," they said, handing it to me. Their voice cracked a little. "I've been having a hard time since the divorce. My ex took almost everything and left me with all the debt. I lost my job 6 months ago, and unemployment barely covers the mortgage. I've been selling the things I took to help pay for groceries and keep the lights on." I stood there, package in hand, completely blindsided. This person I'd judged as a thief was a desperate parent trying to keep their family afloat while maintaining the appearance that everything was fine. "Why didn't you say anything? Ask for help?" I questioned. They looked at the floor. Pride, I guess. Everyone in this neighborhood seems so put together. Perfect jobs, perfect families. I didn't want to be the failure. I left their house with my package and a heavy heart. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd learned. The next morning, I called a few other neighbors I was close with and carefully explained the situation without sharing too many personal details about my neighbor's circumstances. By the end of the week, we had organized a neighborhood support system. One neighbor who worked at a local company mentioned they were hiring. Another offered to watch the teenager after school so my neighbor could work later shifts if needed. Someone else set up a meal train. I helped create a discreet community fund to help with immediate bills. My neighbor was resistant at first, that same pride getting in the way, but eventually accepted the help. They started the new job 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, they left a note in my mailbox with a gift card to my favorite coffee shop and a simple message. Thank you for not calling the police. I'm getting back on my feet. The model car sits on my father's bedside table now. He smiles every time he looks at it. And I've learned that sometimes what looks like a simple case of right and wrong has a lot more nuance to it. Our neighborhood feels different now, stronger, more connected. We still have the block parties and wave when we get the mail, but there's something more authentic beneath the surface. We've seen behind one another's facades and realized we're all just doing our best, sometimes failing, sometimes needing help. As for my packages, I haven't had one go missing since, but I did start having my more expensive deliveries sent to my workplace, just to be safe. Some lessons you only need to learn once. Update 1, 3 months later. It's been 3 months since the confrontation with my neighbor, and I wanted to share how things have evolved. The neighborhood support system we created has expanded in ways I never expected. What started as helping one family has turned into a community resource network. My neighbor is thriving at their new job. They even got promoted to shift supervisor last month. Their teenager seems happier too, more engaged with the community instead of hiding away at home. They've started mowing lawns for some of the elderly residents on our street for extra money. The most surprising development came during last month's block party. My neighbor stood up and publicly thanked everyone for their support. They were open about their struggles and how close they'd come to losing their house. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Afterward, 3 other families privately approached our informal community assistance group to ask for help with their own situations. One facing medical bills, another dealing with unexpected unemployment, and a third struggling with eldercare costs. It made me realize how many people in our perfect neighborhood were silently struggling, maintaining appearances while drowning in stress and financial worries. As for my father, his treatment is going better than expected. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. He keeps that model car where he can always see it, and it's become a sort of talisman for him during the rough days of treatment. My neighbor and I have developed an unlikely friendship. We have coffee every other weekend and talk about everything and nothing. They've paid back some of what they estimate they took from me in stolen packages, despite my insistence that it wasn't necessary. It's about accountability, they told me. I'm teaching my kid that we make amends when we've done wrong, no matter the circumstances. I've learned more about empathy and community in these past months than in all my previous years combined. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I just called the police that day instead of knocking on their door. One decision, made in a moment of controlled anger, completely changed the trajectory of our neighborhood. Update 2, 1 year later. It's been a full year since the package incident, and I'm still amazed at how one confrontation could so completely transform a community. The informal support network we created has now become an official neighborhood association with monthly meetings and a dedicated fund for residents facing hardships. We've helped 7 families through various crises this year alone. What's remarkable is how people who receive help almost always become the most dedicated volunteers once they're back on their feet. My neighbor has become the association's treasurer, a bit of irony we both appreciate. They're completely transparent about their past actions and use their story to encourage others to ask for help before making desperate choices. Their teenager is heading to community college next fall with a partial scholarship and plans to study social work. My father finished his treatment 6 months ago and is officially in remission. The doctors are cautiously optimistic that he's beaten it. At his cancer-free celebration dinner, he made a toast not just to his health, but to the package thief who inadvertently created a community. My neighbor, who was there as my invited guest, laughed harder than anyone. The most unexpected outcome has been the attention from surrounding neighborhoods. 2 adjacent communities have started their own support networks based on our model. The local newspaper even did a feature on us. They called it the package that delivered community, which we all thought was delightfully cheesy. Last week, I came home to find a package on my porch, a gift from my neighbor. Inside was a doorbell camera, newer and fancier than my current one, with a note that read, "For the man who saw me at my worst and still chose to see the best. Some security for your packages, though I promise they're safe on this street now." I installed it the next day, not because I'm worried about theft anymore, but because it serves as a daily reminder that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes if we approach them with compassion rather than judgment. Our neighborhood isn't perfect. We still have disagreements and the occasional drama that comes with any community of diverse individuals. But underneath it all is a foundation of genuine care and the shared knowledge that we're all just one crisis away from needing help. That awareness has made us kinder, more attentive, and infinitely stronger as a community. As for me, I've learned that justice and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes the most just response isn't punishment, but understanding. And sometimes a stolen package can deliver something far more valuable than whatever was inside it.